Hey, soul survivors, we're going to talk about what causes the trauma bond. If you've ever been with a narcissist, a lot of times you have this trauma bond, can't break it. You're longing to get back with your abuser. So, a trauma bond, this begins when a person develops this intense emotional attachment to somebody who is consistently hurting or even manipulating them. And it can be confusing, painful, and even powerful. And it doesn't just happen all at once. It usually develops over time through a pattern of emotional highs and lows. And this leaves the victim feeling stuck, they're loyal, or even protective of their abuser. So, intermittent rewards, this is the hook that keeps you hoping. One of the most common reasons trauma bonds form is because of this intermittent reinforcement. When kindness or love is given unpredictably and it's mixed in with mistreatment, you can go days feeling rejected, scared, criticized, then suddenly you start receiving affection, maybe an apology or some attention. Even that small moment of connection feels so intense and relieving that it creates this powerful emotional pull. And it's not the abuse that bonds someone, it's the momentary relief from it that hooks them. This unpredictable cycle affects the brain the same way that addiction does, and it triggers dopamine, creates a craving for more of those good moments, even when the relationship is mostly painful. Now, childhood attachment wounds, trauma bonds often have roots in early relationships. So, if somebody grew up with caregivers who were inconsistent, emotionally unavailable, or even abusive, they might associate love with pain or unpredictability. So when they enter into an adult relationship, this can mimic that kind of chaos and it feels oddly familiar, even though it's harmful. From an attachment perspective, they may be trying without realizing it to earn love from somebody who reminds them of a past wound that they never got to heal. Now, survivors go through cognitive dissonance and also self blame. So, when you're in a toxic relationship, it can really mess with your sense of reality. Victims often have this cognitive dissonance, and that's the mental discomfort of trying to make sense of someone who says, I love you, but they also cause harm. So, to manage this confusion, the victim starts to minimize the abuse or blaming themselves, which only deepens the bond. They may start thinking things like, they didn't mean it, they were just stressed, or if I was better, they wouldn't get so angry. This self blame will start to chip away at your confidence and make it even harder to lead. Now, there is a power imbalance and also learned helplessness. Inside many trauma bond relationships, there's a big power imbalance. The abuser controls the narrative, the resources, or the emotional tone of the relationship. So over time, the victim can begin to feel like they have no control or sometimes even no way out. This is called learned helplessness. Even if there are options to leave, they can often feel paralyzed or hopeless. It's not weakness, it is a trauma response. And let's talk about isolation and shame. Abusers often isolate their victims, whether it's from friends, family, even coworkers at times. And without outside perspective, the victim can begin to believe what the abuser says, that no one else would love them or that they deserve what's happening. So the longer this isolation goes on, the harder it becomes to recognize the abuse for what it is. Shame plays a huge role. Victims may feel embarrassed to admit what's happening, especially if they once believed that this relationship was with the one. So, trauma bonds form in relationships where there is ongoing abuse mixed with moments of care or connection, especially when the victim has a history of unmet emotional needs. These relationships can feel impossible to leave at times, not because the person doesn't want to, but because their brain, their heart, and their past are all tangled up in survival and hope. Breaking a trauma bond takes time, safety, support, self compassion, and often the guidance of a therapist or I'm a life coach if you would like to reach out to me. Cynthia at asoulsurvivor.com, and we can do a one-on-one session. But it's important to understand the dynamic and how to heal from this. If you'd like to know more, comment, tell me more, and I'll let you know how you can tell when the trauma bond is breaking and what to do to make it break. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Please like and subscribe, share it. This will help someone.